Is this like old-fashioned union action here? I feel like we've seen this movie before, using one company against the other, in this case, Ford. Is that the strategy for Shawn Fain?
You know, the traditional UAW approach had been to bargain with one company and not the other two, or at a time, there was a time when there were four of them, so the other three. But the approach this time was to bargain with all three at the same time and to strike against all three at the same time, but to target that strike to a limited number of facilities. And it's still a fairly small number of workers who are striking. There are about 150,000 workers at these three automakers that are UAW members, and only about 18,000 are going to be out on strike with this new 38 plant addition to the strike. So it's the old strategy, but in a new way, in a very innovative way. The UAW adapting a strategy that's been used by the Association of Flight Attendants, for example, in other strikes. So it's a creative approach, and it seems to be having a desired effect on some of the companies, at least.
What gets this actually done, Seth? What number is Shawn Fain willing to say, okay, we're going to accept that?
You know, the number that matters the most to President Fain is the percentage of his membership at each of the companies that vote to ratify the contract. That's what he is aiming at. He needs a sizable majority of the members, I would argue north of 60 or 65%, voting to ratify the agreement before he will feel that he's been successful. Remember, he won his election by only a few hundred votes out of thousands cast. He wants to pull the union together, and the way to do that is to use these negotiations to do that. So I don't know what wage number, what COLA number, what temporary worker arrangement is necessary. I think they're going to have to get rid of the two tiers to get that kind of support. But different groups of workers want different things. It's not a homogeneous group, and they need different things. Newer workers have some demands, older workers or longer-term workers have other demands, and he's got to feed all of those to get to a big number for ratification. Remember, the Teamsters, 83% ratification with the UPS contract.
But Seth, it's more than just wages that we're talking about here, right? Shawn Fain himself has said you could double the number right now. We're not done. They want pensions. They want retirement plans. Is there a world in which Ford, GM, Stellantis cough that up?
Well, I think you're right, and that was the importance of Cayley's report in the setup, is that there are a lot of issues on the table, and the companies are going to have to move with respect to, I would say, all or certainly a large majority of them in order to get the union to agree to end the strike. You're right that it's not just wages. I think that if the UAW got exactly what it asked for there, they would then turn around and say, well, what about the two tiers? What about temporary workers? And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what the companies are willing and able to give. I think the restoration of defined benefit pensions is unlikely for a whole bunch of reasons. But I think there's a lot that the UAW has asked that the companies both can afford to give and should be willing to give, because they'll be able to cement this relationship very successfully for a long period of time, maybe reduce turnover, and I think they'll have a more productive workforce.
Seth, one of the men behind you in that photographs above your shoulder is President Joe Biden. And now he's tweeting today that he is going to go to Michigan. He is going to join the UAW workers on the picket line. Why now? Is it because the former President Trump said he's going, or is it because Shawn Fain invited him today?
Well, let me just say, we're not going to see Donald Trump walk a picket line. I think that he would probably burst into flames if he tried to do that. He is not a supporter of the strikers. He's not a supporter of the auto workers. On the other hand, President Biden has been leaning very far forward in support, not just of unions in general and collective bargaining, but the workers in this particular labor dispute. He wants to see the companies share their robust profits broadly with these workers. And I think, you should never underestimate how seriously the President of the United States takes his, blanket phrase, which we've repeated a number of times on air, and that is that he's the most pro-union president in history. He takes that very, very seriously, and I can't imagine a more powerful statement of that than him going out to the picket line.
Well, he got that statement from you, of course, Seth. One of the lines that struck me today from Shawn Fain was, this is not just about the big three. He talked about a separate action against a Mercedes-Benz plant and talked about other labor actions around the country. And it makes me want to ask you about the Hollywood strike that has been going on for longer than most of us could probably even estimate at this point. There's reporting that there is progress, and I wonder if you see that as the first labor action to be resolved out of all the ones we've mentioned.
Well, I want to be careful about predicting success in the Writers Guild strike. We have reason for optimism now. We are seeing the indicator that I've mentioned to you a number of times in the past, Joe, that there is hope for a settlement, and that is the parties are talking about issues that they are resolving. They are talking about moving toward one another in the negotiations, but I think there's still a little bit of a distance to go. The reason we can't remember how long the Writers Guild strike is, it is on the verge, I think in the next week or 10 days, of becoming the longest writers' strike ever. And they've had a lot of very long strikes. This strike is really surprising that it has gone so badly for the studios. They really, I think, misjudged the situation. But we're going to have to see if they settle. And then after they're done with the writers, they've got to turn right around and negotiate with the actors, SAG-AFTRA. I think it'll be easier once they settle a lot of the issues with the writers because they have a bunch of issues in common.